Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kara and today we are back in the workshop. I am so excited for this project. So we're going to be doing another small wood project and I think we just go ahead and jump right into it. So this project I talked about on a couple of my other videos, but we are going to be making an ice fishing rod. So really we're going to be making the handle. We are going to be making the Green Hornet. This is from a movie, Grumpy Old Men. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go watch it. It is a classic and it is hilarious. So we are going to be making that ice fishing rod. I have made a few of these in the past. However, I wanted to do a video on it. So I already have the design from the other ones that I did. I just traced it from before. So here it is. It's a duck. Originally I did just freehand this though, so I didn't have any plans, I didn't have anything like that. I just kind of looked at, what pictures, I paused the movie, and just freehanded it, and this is what I came up with. So we are going to be using my scroll saw. I'm going to start with the jigsaw to cut around it, and then I'm going to be using the scroll saw to get those nice clean corners and curves. We all know that I love my scroll saw, so that's the plan there. And then we will go ahead and sand it. We're gonna sand down his little beak here because we will be drilling a hole in for the rod itself to be placed in there. And we're just gonna glue that in there. So I would say this is for sure decorative. I don't know that I would recommend fishing with it. However, so I made 3 of these, and all 3 of those that I've made in the past have been fished with. They've caught fish. No issues, so there is that. But let's go ahead and get started with the cutting. Okay. And I'm just gonna use my jigsaw and I'm gonna get as close to some of these as I can, but I'm really gonna clean it up with the scroll saw.
For the material, I'm just using a leftover 1x pine piece. So I'm using a 1x12 that I have my design on. You could definitely use a 1x4 because this design is about 3 3/4 inches high. And then the overall length is about 13.5 to 14 inches, depending on how you draw it out, of course. But that's about what I have here.
Got it cut out, looks great. The next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is I am actually going to just sand down his little beak here, make that a little bit more square so I can drill my hole. That's where we'll be attaching our rod, of course. For the rod, I happen to just have a broken one where the handle snapped off. Worked perfect. I've also purchased these, you can buy just the rod, no rod or reel, or you can buy like a super cheap just a little cranky reel for like $10 to $12. So very cost effective. And what I'm going to do is drill a hole in the beak here so we can go ahead and glue in our rod. Okay, so I'm gonna glue it in probably about, I would say that's probably about 2 to 2.5 inches or so into the handle. It doesn't give us a ton here, but it is, like I said, this one's broken, so if you got one that wasn't, you could probably get a little bit more length out of it. I think it will be okay. Because, this is so important, make sure your eyelids are on top because the line is designed to wrap around the duck's wings, okay? So make sure that you do that. Otherwise, it's just not gonna work quite well. So there is that. So we're gonna drill this and then sand it down. After we sand, we're gonna go ahead and paint. And then after we paint it, we are going to glue this in there, and then we'll come back and we'll give it a nice finishing coat. So let's go ahead and sand down our beak.
After sanding his little beak down, I went ahead and drilled a hole into his beak so we could place the rod in there. So again, we are not gluing this yet, but I wanted to see how it looked and make sure that I got enough depth within that rod there. And our next step, of course, is to sand him, get him nice and smooth out some of those harsh edges. Just do the best that you can. I will have to go ahead and use some sandpaper with my hand to get under his little wings and make sure that there's no rough edges there. And after we're done sanding, go ahead, wipe it down, and we'll start painting. So first step of painting is I went ahead and kind of drew where I needed to break up the colors, right? So his beak is yellow, his head is green, and then the very end there is some orange, and then the body is mostly brown. So I got my colors all ready to go and then drew that on there with pencil. I did freehand my lines when I was painting. However, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and tape off your lines so you really had nice, clean, crisp lines. I felt pretty comfortable just freehanding it. I think it looks okay and it will turn out just fine. And of course, with any project like this, painting was the most time consuming. Getting those nice clean lines, just being consistent and careful there. And then of course, dry time. There's a lot of time where I had to stop what I was doing so it could dry, make sure I didn't need to do any more coats or anything of that nature. So I did totally paint right over that line on the end there where his little backside is supposed to be orange. However, I go back in at the end here and go over it in orange. So totally fine. It covers up just fine.
So our first coat is on. We're gonna go ahead and let this dry. We will come back, do any touch-up paint that's needed. We are for sure gonna need a second coat on that little white strip across his neck, of course, and then we're gonna have to paint his eyeballs on. After our painting is done, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna super glue in the rod in his little beak. We'll take it back out to the workshop, do a nice finishing coat, add some fish line to it, and we will be good to go.
When I do the eyes, I start really small and then I just make those circles bigger until I get to the size of that eye that I want. It just helps so I don't make it too big from the beginning, and then I can continue with the nice round edges and make sure that it's consistent. Once I had the white as big as I wanted it, then I just went in with black and I did the same thing. I made it small and then made it bigger as I went until it was the size I wanted.
Okay, we are nice and dry. Looks good, looks good. So the next step here is to actually glue the rod in place. So we're gonna place the glue in both the hole and on the rod. We're gonna go ahead and put her in there. All right, now, super important before I actually glue this that we know which way we're putting the rod in, right? So we wanna make sure that the eyelids are face up because the line actually wraps around up here on the duck's wings. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue, and then we're gonna glue this in place. So I'm just using a Gorilla Glue. You can use whatever kind of super glue you want. E85 is also a really good option.
A few moments later.
You get pliers just to open my glue. Alright. So again, I'm going to put a little bit of glue in here. It dries clear, which is also another important distinction if you want to get glue everywhere, right? So we're going to put our glue on our rod. All right, so we got glue, and then again, make sure those eyelids are face up. So I'm just gonna make sure it's nice and straight. And then I'm gonna push down this rubber orifice. Okay, and then I'm gonna hold it in place for a couple minutes here, and then we'll let it dry for a little bit. The last thing that we need to do, really close, the last thing that we need to do after this dries is just go ahead and put a clear coat on the handle itself. So I'm going to be using shellac, and it's just, the stuff I have is a spray, so I'm just gonna spray it right on there, give it a little bit of a shine, it'll be a little bit of a protectant, all those good things. So we'll let this dry, and then we'll head back out to the workshop, spray that on, add our line, and we will be all done. Okay, our rod is in place, nice and glued in, nice and tight. So next up, we're gonna go ahead and spray our finishing coat. I'm going to be using shellac. I really love it. It works so great. It's just gonna protect our paint job here and our wood. Also give it a little sheen. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. After we do that, we're gonna string our line through and we'll be all done. this to dry, it feels like the right time to say thank you so much for watching. I'm so excited to do another one of these projects. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and hit that thumbs up down below. Go ahead and follow me down below as well, leave a comment, and I hope to see you in my next video.
Now that our rod is nice and dry from that finishing coat, we go ahead and string our line through. I did go ahead and add a tiny little notch on the back of the wing. You'll see here in just a second. That way the line can sit in there. So I just used my utility knife, make a little notch right here. There it is. And you can see that there, so the line can just sit in there nicely, nice and tight.